This is the Dzogchen Semde Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. Come, let us explore. The truth about your Buddha nature could surprise you, followed by group meditation. Let's explore the anthropology of our samsaric and nirvanic natures. We'll start with our nirvanic nature, also known as our Buddha nature. Anthropologists and archaeologists agree that there is sufficient data to suggest that approximately 300,000 years ago, our Paleolithic ancestors enjoyed an absolutely groovy lifestyle that promoted each individual to be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Just like groovy Qui-Gon Jinn. After approximately 290,000 years, this came to a screeching halt during the advent of the proto-capitalism of the Neolithic Revolution, where competition was king and society conditioned its minions to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, and as grumpy as Mace Windu. So we had proto-communism and proto-capitalism. You see, we have a dopamine-oriented reward system, which is jim dandy for issues of life and death. You know, being chased by a bear through the woods. But when it becomes our default mechanism, when it becomes the North Star by which we navigate life, we become kind of like the Big Lebowski. We have an, what's it called? An oxytocin-oriented system that rewards for cooperation. And this helps us to be as groovy as the dude. So we have the Big Lebowski nature and the dude nature. Let's shift gears from anthropology to neuroscience. And let's explore the neuroscience of being a cranky bastard. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. That would include humans, even meditation teachers. 90% sucks. That's a big fat bummer, isn't it? But don't take my word for it. Let's look at the neuroscience. When we listen to the popular opinions, the 90%, they will tell us that we must focus on absolutely nothing and suppress all thoughts, or we must focus on one thing, i.e., our breath, or a syllable, or an image. Every time our mind moves away, we have to pull it back. Well, the only part of our brain capable of that is our medial prefrontal cortex. This is probably not the best diagram, it's the best I could find. If you have a better diagram, hook me up. The 90% will also tell us that if we want wisdom, we gotta contemplate, we gotta analyze. And the only part of our brain that can do that is our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Now, anything that can be used can be abused. And when we abuse the front of our brain, when we use it too much, we cut ourselves off from our inner genius. We exhaust the front of our brain to the point that we begin presenting with symptoms of depression, and no less trigger our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression. Fear is the path to the dark side. If you've ever seen Empire Strike Back, that could sound familiar to you. I'm trying to raise my voice. I had some complaints earlier this week that my built-in microphone to the laptop wasn't loud enough, so I'm trying to project. And if I sound angry, let me know. Life is an ongoing project, is it not? Now, let's talk about the neuro. So if we had what's it called? A neurological component of our samsaric nature, it would be the partnership between our amygdala and our prefrontal cortex. Let us now turn our attention to our spinal cord. It has two components, and when we look at it together as one unit, we can call that our autonomic nervous system. That's the seat of our Buddha nature, because when we cooperate with our autonomic nervous system, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, it calms the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala and enhances our peace and gently stimulates our anterior cingulate gyrus, the seat of empathy. Pretty cool. Let's take a deeper look at this, shall we? We'll begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which could be described as the nexus of our sympathetic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, in a very yin way, in a very matriarchal way. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all mind's antics. Our mind's ability to perceive sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including the full spectrum of emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. It has evolved to help us notice all manner of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque, without picking and choosing. Because you can pick your nose and you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your friend's nose. The essence of mindfulness is simply to watch the antics of mind. Now here's the rule of thumb. All we got to do is silently and mentally recite the verb watch every time we feel our chest swell with breath. Now, what do we do with all that which we noticed? Because some of it is pretty squirrely. That brings us to meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we've evolved to automatically access the tippy top and the very bottom of our spinal cord, the penthouse and the basement. These two, as a pair, as a team, are known as our the nexus of our parasympathetic nervous system. They have evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Now, I think it was my fourth grade English teacher who explained that a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. Therefore, we have to ask ourselves a question. What? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast empty void? Look above. How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand? And so we see the so-called mysteries of Buddhism, emptiness and no self, are just metaphors, just figures of speech to describe the fleeting experience latent within each exhalation. Is there a rule of thumb for meditation? You bet. All we got to do is silently and mentally recite the verb rest every time we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale. So the lowly spinal cord is the seat of our Buddha nature. Our job is not to coerce our brain into, our job is not to metaphorically grab our Buddha nature by the lapels and shake it like a French au pair. Au contraire, our job is simply to cooperate with it passively. It's already there, chugging away in the background like some forgotten program on your computer. It's already there. But we exhaust ourselves by making a habit of actively competing against it. Now you know that cooperating with it passively is as close as sitting and breathing and watching and resting. We play with the verbs watch and rest, not to command our autonomic nervous system, but to remind our will, our intention, if we want to be fancy, our volition, that we are here to passively cooperate with the true stroke engine of our Buddha nature. I'd like to conclude by exploring the ease and efficiency of our Buddha nature. Whoopsie, there we go. If you want to make, so good old Einstein is credited for explaining that any educated idiot can make things more complicated, more difficult, more violent. However, it takes a lot of courage and a little bit of genius to move in the opposite direction. Leonardo da Vinci explained that the zenith of elegance is simplicity. In the second to the last passage of the Buddha's discourse on the four bases of mindfulness, he explained that one could master his path in as little as 7 days, which infers that it is not an elitist path, it is an egalitarian path. It is not a path of coercion, it is a laid-back, easy path. Perhaps that is why the fourth enlightenment factor is joy. You don't see a lot of joy coming from the path of the cranky bastard, but you do see a lot of joy coming from the path of groovy Qui-Gon Jinn. What if enlightenment was nothing more than mastery of the Buddha's eightfold path? What do I mean by mastery? As children, We each found the task of learning how to use the commode instead of our diapers, learning how to brush our teeth, learning how to tie our shoes, learning how to ride a bike. We found that to be daunting and insurmountable. And yet most of us, within a handful of years, got so good at those four tasks that we were able to practice them spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Let's go back. Remember, our two rules of thumb to cooperate with the two phases of our Buddha nature are watching and resting, mindfulness and meditation, the seventh and eighth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. So here's the mind-blowing thing. Simply by playing with these two techniques, at least about once every 12 hours or so, we spontaneously and effortlessly practice the remaining six folds of the path. The more we watch and rest, the more we cannot help but notice change and fleeting non-graspability. The more we watch and rest, the more we cannot help but practice kind intention, kind communication, kind conduct, and kind commerce, which constitute 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. The more we watch and the more we rest in cooperation with our Buddha nature, the more our choices and our utterances and our deeds flow not from contrived planning or wild scatterness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. We could call this effortless effort, we could call this right effort, we could call this wu wei, we could call this doing without doing, we could call this going with the flow. We don't, and yet ironically, we're often told that we must force going with the flow, which makes about as much sense as making love in the name of virginity. It's a lot of fun, but terribly unproductive. It doesn't take you any closer to your stated goal. So all we gotta do to master this whole mess is simply play with the mindfulness and meditation that we are already wired to play with. All we gotta do is get out of our own way and cooperate with the Buddha nature that is our autonomic nervous system. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For the Buddha Joy meditation, for Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you.